Aaron here? Aaron's here. Joshua here? Joshua not here. Michael's not here. Benji is here too.
Birdie.
Brody is here. You could do it. Good enough? Normally it's 6. We have 3. Can I okay. Ethan. Ethan. Yes. Ethan's right there. No, I mean 30. He's right there. Alan's your brother. Oh, no, Alan. No. Are you going to cut your clothing, sir? Is this enough? Or we can do it. Okay. Anyone else here you want to get the Yeah. My friend Jerry. Jerry?
Bill, Greg.
Bill here?
Bill's here.
Where's Bill? Sure. Is it Paul here? Is that okay? Bill, wait. Okay. And, and then, the siblings. Alan's here? Alan's here. And are they going to cut their clothing or? I don't know. Probably. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start in just a moment. Can I ask everyone to please turn your cell phones to silent mode? Thank everybody for coming. There's actually 17 devices currently logged on. So in addition to everyone that's here, we've probably got another 30 to 50 people watching the service. Family would like the grandsons that are here to be pallbearers: Aaron, Benji, Brody, and Ethan, and also Jerry Hyman and Bill Stern. Would you please come up to the hearse at this time? Hey, no, Sid. The right expression. No. Lift it. You can be seated. The service is being conducted by Rabbi David Lincolnstein. Apologize. Does anybody here not have a program? Rabbi, yes, I will. Can you move that around here, please? The family members that are either going to cut their clothes or the siblings of Helene, please stand up.
Begin the service, it's customary to acknowledge at this point great deep loss which is in the family. It is true tradition that one rents a garment, expressing that this is a tear in the fabric of the family which can never be the same. And one then acknowledges and makes a blessing. God is a true judge. This one button here for a moment. Okay. I'm going to start to cut over here, and then we'll make the blessing together.
Okay, I can do it over here.
Alberta?
Blessing.
Okay, come forward.
Okay, 1 second. So you're going to take them both sides. I'm just going to one second. This is your tear here.
Maybe in Monday you wear this.
Except you want to blessing together. You just tear it. Okay.
Until Sunday morning. 1 hour Sunday morning.
Wear it, then you should have Friday night.
Thank you. I wear.
You wear that shirt.
Absolutely. That's the plan.
Okay. So join me, make the
Come up
blessing.
here. Rabbi, come up with the rabbi here. If you want to start a little tear in this ribbon,
Believe me, sir.
if you could just tear it a little bit more. Just grab onto the two corners.
Take the blessing together. Baruch. Baruch. Atah Eloheinu melech haolam. Dayan. Ha'emet. Take it, tear. Take both sides. Let's tear.
There you go. Okay.
I'd like to begin by reciting Psalm 23. I'll first recite it in Hebrew, and then if you can all join me in reciting it in English, that is found in your program, in your folder. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai roi leyechzar, v'neizdesha yabitzeni al menuchas ina haleni. Nafshi yeshovi yancheni magli tzedek l'man shemo, gam ki elech begeitz hamoves lo yirero ki ato imodi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha heimo yenachamuni. Ta'arech lefanai shulchan neged tzoreroi, v'shantov Hashem en roishi koisi revoya. Achtov v'chesed yedefuni kol yemei chayoi, v'shavti beveis Adonai la'orech yomim. Please join me in saying it together in English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm going to recite the blessing that one makes when one is in a cemetery. As I conclude, just respond, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yotzar eschem badin v'zon v'chilkel eschem badin v'hemes eschem badin v'yudei mispar kulchem badin v'osin lahachayeschem u'l'kayim eschem badin Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hamesim.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who fashioned you with justice, nourished and sustained you with justice, took your lives with justice, knows the sum total of you all in justice, and will restore and resuscitate you in justice. Blessed are you, Lord, who revives the dead. Ato gibor l'olam Adonai mechayim mesim atorav lehishia. Mechalkel chayim v'chesed mechayim mesim b'rachmim rabim. Semech neuflim v'reifech choylem matir asurim u'mekayim menose l'sheni afar. Mi chamoicha bal gvuros medei malach melech negus u'mechayo matzmiach Yeshua v'neman ato lahachis mesim. As so many friends and family are gathered here today to pay tribute to Helene Block Fields, Yehudis, Frimit, Bat Yisrael, Yitzchak, V'chana. Let us remember the words of the wisest of all men, King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, as he summarizes all of the observances of mourning in just 4 simple words. He summarizes this by saying, V'hachai yitein el libo, and the living shall take to heart. A funeral is never a time that is properly scheduled or at a convenient time, but it becomes a priority. We put everything else on hold. We stop running, we put our lives on pause. It's a time of reflection. It's a sober moment, a time when we reflect, appreciate the value, the sanctity, the significance, and the frailty of life in general, and more specifically today, to pay tribute and to learn from the life of Helene Block Fields. Modern physics has taught us that no substance ever disappears. It only changes its form. Matter is another form of energy. And so, if this regards to the physical, how much more so when we talk about life itself, the human soul, which is by very nature, it is spiritual. The mitzvah of nechama, to comfort those who are grieving, is not when we forget or minimize the loss, as we know that time heals all wounds, but true nechama and true comfort is when there's a paradigm shift. And that paradigm shift begins now. The first paradigm shift is recognizing what the world calls what we're doing now and how it's called in Hebrew. In English, it's called a funeral. In Hebrew, it's a levaya. The meaning of funeral, this comes from the Old French, la fin, which is the end. It's the last event. It's the last hurrah. In Hebrew, levaya means to escort. There are 2 totally different meanings. The funeral, if it's the end, it's all over. You only escort what still exists. Our teacher, the Torah itself, The Torah teaches us that the soul never dies. The soul just continues in a higher form. What changes is our relationship to the soul. While Helene's precious neshama, precious soul, once lived amongst us, her soul will now continue to live on within us. So as we're here to escort her neshama, to escort her soul up on high, and we lay her body to her final resting place, we now fulfill what King Solomon says, that the living should take to heart, to now internalize what she lived for, what were her values, so that that should continue. Those values will now continue within us. I'd like to first begin by traditionally asking for mechila. Traditionally, we ask for forgiveness. If there's at any time we wronged Helene in her life, now is the time to ask for forgiveness, as well as, personally, it's impossible to encapsulate a person's entire life and achievements, what we know, what we don't know, in just a few moments. So with that, I ask mechila from Helene. If we had not properly eulogized you, not properly said the right words in your honor. To begin, I'd like to ask the three people to come forward. To begin with the eulogies, I'd like to first ask Aaron Block, grandson, and followed by Helene's brother, Alan, and followed by Stephen.
When someone we love dies, we grieve and we re-grieve through each stage of our life in their absence. It is so painful that we avoid talking about it and feeling it. We are often afraid to say the wrong things to others who are grieving, afraid to say too much, being too negative, not knowing their culture, or spoiling the innocence of childhood. All of these create social taboos. But healing is possible when we face these issues and share our feelings and grief. I am incredibly sad. And I share your grief today. Since you all are here participating, you knew my grandmother as a family member or a friend. You probably knew several sides of her. I want to talk about 5 sides of her that I got to witness quite a bit over almost 46 years. And also some lessons from this incredibly serious, compassionate, zany, eccentric, Renaissance woman, as I like to think of her. Side number 1, the shaman, witch doctor, and health nut side. May sound familiar to some of you. I remember counting dozens of vitamins, which is probably the secret to living 91 years, I'm not sure. I remember having to chew 30 times before swallowing, which led to my slim physique as a young man. Probably not. But don't worry, if anything is wrong with you, this side of Helene would have taught you that arnica can heal it. This has been passed down through the various Block family generations. It's also an important lesson to know that you can have undiagnosed allergies that you self-diagnose. Modern medicine, Western medicine does not know about them, but they exist. And the way you find out about them is by flicking your finger at various foods to know if it's good for you or not. an important lesson for all of us. Another lesson from this side of her was that you're never alone. I remember being afraid. I think I had a speech or I was performing on stage, probably a little younger than the youngest great-grandchildren who are here. And I was nervous, and we sat across her kitchen table, face to face, eye to eye. And she said, "I'm here with you. I will always be with you." And she said, "Pull your ear. I will pull my ear." And we looked each other in the face, and she said, "As long as you pull your ear, you'll know I am forever with you." Another side of Helene that I got to see, that I'm guessing most of you haven't, is the world famous chef side of her. She was very, very well known as a world famous chef to Inigo Montoya. Yes, Inigo Montoya. Saul Berenson. The incredible Mandy Patinkin made Helene famous for her cooking. Maybe the only person possibly in the world that could make her famous for her cooking, because the lesson here for the younger generation is that tuna burgers are amazing. And we have the recipe and it will live on. An important lesson from the world famous chef side of Helene that you may not have known. How about the artist side? I have a feeling several folks who are familiar with her art. Drawing, sculpting, any sort of visual art. Her left hand, very important, passed along through the generations. She believed that the left hand had a mind of its own, and that if you just let it go, your subconscious will lead and the art will create itself. An important lesson. Another side of the artist was the singing. And if you'll humor me for 1 second, I would like to sing together the song that reminds me most of my grandmother. Do you know what it is?
Muffin Man.
The Muffin Man. Please, together. Do you know the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man? Do you know the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane? That's enough, thank you. Please always remember Grandma Helene for that song. But the last side of her that I wanted to share and or remind everybody was her lover side. Don't worry, this isn't going anywhere strange. She seemed to have an inner fountain of love for people. Not just adults, not just children, whites, blacks, poor people, rich people, everybody she found a deep well of love for. She built vast networks of friends from work, some of whom are here, neighbors, her millions of helpers. And she maintained and built an unusually inclusive family, especially our late step-grandfather Tom's amazing crew. It seemed like our family was forever growing with this deep spring and fountain of love. She got so deep, so quickly, with so many people. People felt like family and were loved like family. She was so good at this, she even invented a new category of people to love and wrote a book about it called Grand Friendships that you're probably familiar with. This deep love made me reflect on one last lesson, especially for the younger generation again. Helene was always a giver. Grandma Helene might have always found her way into the spotlight of a conversation, but she was always at the same time giving something of herself. A lot, and always. It could have been her time. It could have been organizations that mattered to her or to you. It could have been a handwritten card, which many of you have received over the years, a news clipping, a toy, a travel trinket, a piece of art, or even a meaningful check. Please, as you remember her, remember Helene's giving lesson. Hold on to the gifts that she gave. I certainly will. Cherish those gifts. And in the meantime, remember to give frequently and to give generously to those you love. Helene is with you and is smiling down at us.
40 years in the business, I've never heard Muffin Man at a funeral. Springs.
Well, Aaron, you sure ruined it for me. But that was beautiful, Aaron. Thank you so much. I cannot tell you how meaningful that was to everyone. So I will share a bit of Helene with you as a youngest brother, which most of you, this is going to be part of Helene that most of you don't have any experience in. And that is, when I was born, the youngest of 5 kids in our family, Helene was the second oldest. She was the oldest girl. She was just barely 11 years old, 2 months away from being 11 years old. And she was charged with the responsibility to take care of her siblings. So she grew up very, very fast. And one aspect of Helene that I'm not sure all of you have a feeling for, but maybe you do, is that she was always searching for that lost youth. It was a driver of hers. She felt that she was, I'm not going to say cheated, but I guess cheated is the right word.
That's what she said.
Of her childhood. And so she matured very, very fast. She really had no role models. She was the oldest girl of all our extended family. I think, Mern, she was older than any of the cousins. I'm almost sure that's right. And so she had no role models with regard to how to function in life. And when she had a problem, like the rest of us kids would go to our parents, their advice was, "You'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. You'll figure it out." And she did. Helene figured it out, and she grew, she matured, and she was the first in everything. She was the first to get married. She married at 19. Wonder if that's just to get out of the house, God only knows, but at 19 she married. She was the first one to have a grandchild, made me an uncle, which I vastly appreciated and loved very much. She really overcame a lot and has developed so incredibly well that it's really a mitzvah. It's amazing. And as her younger brother, her little brother, I always felt she was available to me. If I had a problem, and she was responsible for taking care of us, so because our parents were working, they were never around. And boy, I just gave her such a hard time. It was just impossible. I was absolutely impossible. But I always felt she loved me deeply, and I could turn to her. 2 other things about Helene, and Aaron touched on them, but I'll just reiterate. She had an unbelievable presence. When she made a presentation to a group about her interests, let's just call them, she had that group eating out of the palm of her hand. It was just an incredible presence that she had. That was really, really very admirable. And finally, she had this unique ability to make anyone she was with feel special. I mean, and a lot of people have that skill, but she really meant it. I mean, when you were with her, whether you were the janitor in the building or you were the rabbi in the shul, she made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. She was really interested in you and your well-being. It was just an unbelievable characteristic that is very, very admirable. We will miss her. She was, I went through the dictionary and looked for a word that maybe would describe Helene. I had to go all the way to U for unique. So, because she was unique, one of a kind, and we will miss her deeply. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being special to Helene. I want to acknowledge what the rabbi said about asking for forgiveness if you did anything that you would have wanted forgiveness for. Helene has mentioned to me numerous times in my adult life that I was a difficult child. So I'm asking for her forgiveness. I also have been looking for a word to describe her, and I came up with a number of words. The word that I settled on is she was a giant. Because, you know, the way she tells the story is that Anna came to her after Myrna was born and told her, you're the mother now. You have to take care of the Myrna and then the other children. And it was very difficult for her. She felt like she lost her childhood. But she didn't lose her spirit. And her energy was one of a seeker. She was always seeking out people, to have profound relationships with them, and to make a difference in their lives. In the last couple of days, I've spoken to a number of her friends from the past, and they were all very moved by her memory and their relationship with her. She was a great teacher. When on the south side, walking down the street from time to time, little African-American kids, 6th, 7th graders, just Miss Block, when I see her on the street. Not something you would expect, that kind of energy for a teacher, but she really made a difference in their lives. I'm sure the way she described it, she was a bit stern, so she had control of the classroom. I've met several of her students from Oakton, and it was the same thing. They just poured out how great a teacher that she was, and I think I met 3, 2 of them still were in communication with her. In the family, she was nervous, in my experience. She had 2 great husbands. She had 2 great mentors. Ralph was a great mentor for her going back to school. She had trouble with math and other courses. When she was doing projects, she would do them with Ralph. And the same was true with Tom. Tom was a great, great man, a very patient man, a very loving man. And I've spoken to some of Tom's relatives, and they have the same energy that Aaron described. They loved her. The grandkids, she embraced like her grandkids, because they were, especially in the spirit of grandparenting, grand friendships, where she brought in programs at Oakton. She brought older people together from senior citizen homes with preschool kids. She had a program called Gentle Connections, where they would massage each other's hands and do other things that connected them. The world she grew up in, you had a lot of family around, older generations and younger generations. I know that Dave told me that he had spoken to the rabbi and that he was moved by this, that this is part of Jewish tradition, intergenerational care and involvement. And she was a pioneer in that. She really relaxed at the end of her life in the last, I would say, 5 years, more and more. I had the privilege, probably you all know about it, and those who have talked to her, to know that I sang with her every night, except on Thursdays when Myrna sang with her. We would send her lyrics of a song, and her helpers would print them out. And we didn't just sing, often we would talk. And I visited her several times in the last year, and they were wonderful visits. One thing that she said, we talked about everything. We talked about life and we talked about death. And she pointed out that she had a special relationship with the Zaida, with Barish Stamler, the grandfather of the family, of the Cantor family, Stamler family. And she described herself as his favorite. And she tells the story that one day she told him she wanted to go into the synagogue on Sabbath, with him, which is not traditional, but he put her under his, whatever he was wearing. He was a reverend, so he wore traditional clothes, and snuck her in to the service. And she told me of something that he said at the end of his life when she was talking to him. She was talking to him about death, and he said he was looking forward to dying, and she asked him, why would you do that? He said, because I'm going to be meeting everyone who I've known soon. And he meant it. And he was a giant of a man. The last thing I want to do is acknowledge the Cantor family. My grandparents were immigrants, and it wasn't a time when Jewish people generally had achieved professional success and networks of this and that. They were raised in the traditional way. And she described herself at the end as Orthodox. She saw that in her mind, and she would tell me about it when she talked about conversations that she had with God. Each of the siblings have achieved a remarkable level of success and goodness. Often you hear about corruption in family, or people not being moral. Excuse me. Well, Helene Block was a very moral person. I look forward to carrying on her memory. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Stephen. remember standing here 20 years ago when we paid tribute to Helene's mother at her funeral, Hannah, Anna Cantor. It was through the Cantor family that I got involved, being involved with all of you here. Very, very special people. And Helene was a very special woman. Yes, she was unique. I didn't get to know her very well, but I received a phone call last year. It was a little while after her older brother Cal passed away, and Helene said, "Rabbi, when the time comes, I want you to be there." I guess this characterizes her. Being someone who wants to call the shots, being in control, knows what she wants. A very special woman. A beacon of inspiration. A dedicated educator. And very gifted. As we heard from so many, she touched the lives of so many people through her passion, through her learning, through her innovative spirit, and her profound kindness. She had this perfect combination of insatiable curiosity, a love of teaching, and commitment. Commitment to education, commitment to the next generation. I'd like to focus on primarily this area that Stephen spoke about before, which is the intergenerational program, which really broke down barriers and fostered connections between senior citizens and preschoolers. Steve, you mentioned about how she shared that she lost her childhood. Far be it from me to argue with her, but it is Jewish tradition to argue. I would like to make the point that she never lost her childhood. In fact, there's no way you can have an intergenerational relationship if you don't relate to the child. And if you can, how can you relate to a child if you don't have the child within you? So she never lost that child. She just did things very quickly. In her book, Don't Cheat the Children, focusing on that, not knowing that this was one of her passions and one of her pioneering areas, in the conversation that I had with her last year, she did mention to me that a great inspiration in her life was her grandfather, who I got to know through the family, not directly but indirectly, about the Zayda, Reberish, Yisachadoiv, a very pious man described with a long white beard, very angelic person, but someone who I guess would characterize something special about something you all have. He had a contagious smile, a sparkle in his eye. I'd like to focus on a little bit where this probably originates from. It was made known to me that he was a descendant of one of the great Hasidic masters, going back generations to the 18th century. One of the great Hasidic masters, Reb Elimelech of Lezhensk. Reb Melech. Reb Melech, one of the successors, one of the great Hasidic masters, taught one of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and emphasized that nothing is by chance. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Nothing is by chance. If that's in general, I would say the same is here too. Helene passed away last week. The time when we read in the Torah about the greatest miracle, the Jewish people being led out of Egypt, freed from Egypt, and the miracle of the splitting of the Red Sea. Once the Jewish people were on the other side and experienced this most amazing miracle, saved, and once and for all done with their oppressors and those who enslaved them, the Egyptians, Moses led them in a song. No, it wasn't the Muffin Man, but they were led in song. Az Yashir Moshe, and then Miriam led all the women in song. But there's something very unusual about that song that Moses led the Jewish people. Again, not by chance. The word which was used is Az Yashir Moshe, which literally means, then Moses will sing. So it's really, it doesn't make any sense. What do you mean he will sing? He's saying with the Jewish people, which to us is the past. But it's in the future tense. He will sing. One of the teachings from one of the Hasidic masters points out that Moses' song was indeed a very powerful song. The most powerful song, because what it does is, it links the past with the future, and the future with the past. There are times when we wake up and we feel like we want to sing. And there are days we wake up and we don't feel like singing. But if we link to the past and we focus on the future, we could sing at any time. Wasn't this Helene's life goal? Her book, Don't Cheat the Children. Why don't cheat the children? You would think it's the other way around. Don't cheat the elderly. Because we all know when children come in the presence of the elderly, how they light up. So don't cheat the elderly. Why not? Why do we say don't cheat the children? This reminds me, like, there was a little girl who was feeling the skin of her grandmother. And she asks her, Grandma, God made you, right? She says, yes. Then she feels her own skin. God made me too, right? Yeah. She again feels her grandmother, the wrinkled skin. And God made you a long time ago, right? She says, yes, a long time ago. Again, she touches her skin. I think God is getting better. When we focus on the externality, on the superficial, on the material, there's no way children can relate to the elderly. Especially as technology is moving at a dizzying pace, they're ancient. We're here. And there's a huge, massive gap, which is getting bigger and bigger. But when we focus beyond the external, superficial level, when we focus on the deeper self, especially when we focus on the soul, there's immediately a connection. A connection which can never cease. And that's where Helene captured, being able to connect with people beyond the superficial, beyond appearances, finding the divine, the special quality within each and every human being, and connecting with children. This comes full circle, because as was shared, later in life, she reconnected with her own Jewishness, with her own Yiddishkeit. If the Zayda was the one who had the most impression, made the greatest impression upon her, as a child, And now, as an more elderly woman, once again she's reconnecting with her child, the past with the future with the past. This is a lesson for every one of us, as we should realize that Helene is with us, right? She'll be with us when we remember this message, that we have to focus beyond the superficial and focus on what is really essential, what's deep inside of us. Eternal values, divine values, the divine in each person, the divine in each human being, and find that spark and bring that out and highlight it. We can bridge so many gaps which the world really needs so sorely. So Helene, we pledge here to continue your vision, your lifelong work, to grow, to inspire the youth of today and become the Helenes and the Zaidas of tomorrow. As we now fulfill the mitzvah, there's a mitzvah of, there's many mitzvahs that we do. The mitzvah that we're about to do now is called a chesed shel emes, a true kindness. In Israel, there are two different streams of water. There's the Kinneret up in the north, and there's the Dead Sea in the south. They're both fed by the same stream of water, by the Jordan River. And the sages ask, why is one filled with life and one is dead? And the answer is, the Talmud says, while the Kinneret receives from the Jordan River, it receives and then it gives. Whereas the Dead Sea, being the lowest place on earth, it only receives and does not give, therefore it's dead. In life, we all receive and we all give. There are some people who give in order to receive. And then there are people who receive just in order to give. And clearly, Helene was the latter. Even what she received, her focus was about how can I continuously give. Give more, and give more. And now it's our turn to give to Helene the mitzvah of putting her body to rest. And talking about as a child, just as a child is afraid of the dark, a child wants to be tucked in at night. Now it's our turn to tuck Helene in. It's not something we give over to strangers, it's something we do ourselves. So as the Aron, the casket is going to be lowered.
Do you want to start when you're ready? Rabbi started. Nope. This is fun. Start.
It's Jewish tradition, one of the 13 principles of faith, that death is only a temporary state, when the world will be in a state of Mashiach, a time when there will be world respect for each other, acceptance for each other, a world of peace. A time of Mashiach, we will also experience the revival of the dead. And as the Jewish tradition is that this all begins from the Mount of Olives, we always include earth from the Mount of Olives in every Jewish burial. start off and do your first shovelfuls in. Those who'd like to participate after the cover is put on. The Jewish tradition is that we
Grandchildren can move away, they're gonna put the cover in. Grab it. I don't recommend doing that. No. Let them put the cover in. Cover could break if you do that.
what?
Just cover.
The Jewish tradition is we first put on a bit of earth on side. The way we take the shovel is, first of all, we take it backwards to show that it's not something that we're eager to do. It's unusual. Then we put at least 3 shovelfuls in, and we don't pass the shovel from one to another, as to not pass grief from one to another, and we should all take our initiative in doing a mitzvah.
Please do small shovels. Family, please make your way at either of the shovels. There's one over here. Just be careful of the grate. This one upside down. And don't pass the shovel, please. Put it back to the ground. Anybody else that hasn't shoveled yet? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm putting a camera down here. The white car. You know Rabbi Green?
Excuse me. May I share something with you?
Sure.
I'm Helene. I indeed I did that my first professional license. Oh yeah.
My grandparents never went through that. I wish I could have 5 minutes.
I took over.
Couldn't have possibly happened.
You say you finally learned the water river.
No, I had to learn it when I was live.
And just
So we all been in various ways.
It's the only good thing that came out of COVID. People from around the world come out. I have a funeral tomorrow. Rabbi Bree.
Oh yeah.
He, very close friend. He told me, his son can't come in for the funeral because his grandson got shot 7 times in the
who brought him. There's a card on it.
But, ladies and gentlemen, can I ask everybody to please make your way back in the tent? We're going to conclude with the Kaddish and the El Malei Rachamim.
We're going to conclude with the Kel Malei Rachamim, followed by Kaddish.
I need to ask you to please move in. You're in front of the camera.
El Malei Rachamim, Sheichei Mereimim, Hamtei Menucha Necheino, Al Kanfei Ashchino, V'maleis, Kedei Shemetahirim Kezera Kiem Azhirim Es Nishmas, Yehudis Frumit Bas Yisrael Yitzchak B'chana, Shehol Cholelon Bavush, Anachnu Mispalim Ad Azkoras Nishmoso, V'gan Eden Tehei Menuchoso, V'chein, V'al Rachamim Yasiril B'seisek Nofav Leilomim V'yitzei V'tzrachayim Es Nishmoso, Adonai hu nachaloso v'sunuach v'shalom v'shkov v'neimar amen. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament onto the soul of Yehudis Frumit, the daughter of Yisrael Yitzchak B'chana, who has gone to her world, and in whose memory we pray and give charity. May her repose be in paradise in Gan Eden. May the Master of Compassion bring her under the cover of God's wings and bind her soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be her heritage. May she repose on her resting place in peace. And let us respond, Amen.
Amen.
May her legacy continue. Continue on your dear children, David and Ellen, Stephen, Renee, your grandchildren, Aaron, Sherry, Joshua, Emily, Benji, Abigail, Michael, Zoe, Nikasi and Omari, your great-grandchildren, Brody, Raquel, Ethan, Charlotte, and Julianne, your dear siblings and their families, Carol, Myrna, John, Linda, Jerry, Alan, Diane, your many nieces and nephews, and all those who were blessed to be touched by your life. Let us firmly resolve to make them a part of our lives. May you be a good advocate and a good better up on high, that we should have a world that you envisioned, a world of true peace, a world of Mashiach, and Meir of Yameinu, Amen. We'll now conclude with the Kaddish.
Rabbi, do you want the burial card?
I'm going to do the burial Kaddish. Alan, you can come here. Alan, come forward, please. Alan, Myrna, Linda, come forward.
One's on the back. One more grab. I need you to share, but
Yeah,
it's not the one on the back of the book. It's a burial Kaddish. So if your brother can.
Livnei, Karto, Yerushalayim, Shachlel, Chola, Gavo, Mekad, Uchona, Uchro, Ve'aro, Savoso, Uchona, Shmayo, Asra, Yamlich, Kuchubrichu, Malchuse, Vikore, Yatma, Fulkone, Vikore, Mushiche, Vichaye Chon, וביום איכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל ועגולו זמן קריב ויהיו אמן יהי שמי רב למבורך לא יום ומים יסבורת ישתבח יסבור ישראל ממריס נסר יסעדור ויסעלה ויסעלו שמי דקודשו וריחון אילו כל חוסו ושירוסו שושו חוסו ונקמוסו מיר ורובו Hey, Shalom, Rabba, Yishalayim, Chaim, Tovim, Leim, All Israel, Amen. Osa, Shalom. by forming what's called a shura, as we escort the immediate mourners back to their vehicles. You join me in forming two columns
behind the black car on either side of the street. If everyone other than the mourners that have cut Kriya, everyone would please form two lines. Also, I want to mention that the family is returning to North Shore Congregation Israel at 1185 Sheridan Road in Glencoe. They'll be there today from 2:30 to 7. And I thank you very much for bringing such a beautiful January day. And also, Moses might not have sang Muffin Man, but he might have sang the Matzah.
That's good. That was good.
Very good.
Can we take this?
Yes, absolutely. You know what? Since you're going to the synagogue, take the podium. Take the bring the bags over here. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to come behind these two vehicles. Since there seems to be a lot of mud here, you can stand on the grass, it's fine.
Form two columns shoulder to shoulder. The family goes back to their vehicles, they're surrounded by love.
No, sir, you got to go through the. No. You need to stay back at the car, sir.
Traditional words of comfort.
Okay.
Hamakom, Yinachem, Eschem, Sof, Sha'ar, Avele, Zion, Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among all the mourners of Zion, Yerushalayim. Bless with health. Don't gather before you.
Just right here. You just kind of scoot down a little bit.
Yeah, we have experience with online meetings.